Hi, we're in the middle of Torah Yud Zayin called VaYehi Merikim Sakehem in Likutei Moharan. And we are finishing off Ot Dalid, part 4 in this Torah. And so Rabbi Nachman in this Torah explained to us the formula of how we receive love and fear, the experience of loving and fearing Hashem, using our energy of love and fear in connection, helping us to connect to Hashem through our love and our fear energies and emotions, and also to develop our love and our fear of Hashem. So that's Yira and Ahava. And we said that that's the foundation of our connection to Hashem. And we said that we receive this from the tzaddik, from that which the tzaddik brings to awareness. And what does the tzaddik bring to awareness? It brings to awareness the purpose that Hashem has and the intention that Hashem has in creating the world. It's in general and specifically in each aspect and everything that is found in the world. Why did Hashem create it? What is the purpose that Hashem has for that thing? And that tzaddik also reveals the pride that Hashem prides himself with the Jewish people in general and with each individual in the Jewish people, each individual movement at every moment in their life. And Rabbi Nachman says that these are two sides of the same coin, that the intention and the purpose that Hashem has in creating the world is this pride that he receives from the Jewish people. And when that's revealed, so then there is an awe that falls upon us, and it's comparable to the king donning his royal clothing, the clothing of splendor and the clothing of the king, that anyone who sees him wearing that clothing feels a tremendous awe of the malchus of the king, the kingship. And at the same time, when this is experienced and when the king is wearing his clothing of his royal clothing, which is basically that pride, right? That clothing of royalty, the splendor, that the king is surrounded, is engarbed in this splendor, that itself is the pride that he prides himself with the Jewish people. And when that's revealed, so then that's really the celebration of the kingship of the king. So when the king is wearing his pride, so to speak, and that's the revelation that now it's in our awareness, that tzaddik brings to awareness that Hashem prides himself with each individual in the Jewish people. So the Jewish people is kind of like the clothing of splendor. Bigdei tif'arto, the clothing of Hashem's splendor. And at that time, so that is in itself the celebration of Hashem's kingship. And when the kingship of Hashem is celebrated, so then the intention that Hashem had in creating the world and creating the whole universe is fulfilled, is accomplished. Because en melech belo am, there's no king without a nation. And so now there's a nation, so there's a king. And so the kingship of that king is celebrated, and that's the intention in creating all of this. And when that's completed, there's a tremendous feeling, so to speak, a tremendous feeling of fulfillment by Hashem, and a feeling of accomplishment, so to speak, by Hashem. And that's a feeling that's called ratzon. And when that happens, so then the king's heart is open with love to all of his subjects, and he shows that love and expresses that love, whatever we wish for, whatever we want, whatever we desire, whatever we need, he gives it to us. And so that's the love that's revealed. And so at first there's the awe that's revealed, and then there's the love that's revealed. And both of these energies are revealed through the tzaddik, through what the tzaddik brings to awareness. So that's the point here. So that the tzaddik brings something to our mochin, is mamshich mochin, is mamshich dat. He draws consciousness. There's Torahs in the Likutei Moharan. There's a Torah that I was just learning this afternoon in the end of Likutei Moharan, where he says that just by looking at the tzaddik, just by looking at the tzaddik, that itself, through looking at the face of the tzaddik is able to draw mochin to you. He's able to draw da'at. He's able to draw this consciousness to you. And he's speaking in that Torah specifically about Moshe Rabbeinu. But he says any one of the Jewish leaders, in every generation we have a Moshe Rabbeinu. And when we look at that leader, the definition of a leader, as the pasuk says in as the pasuk says, the pasuk describes what a leader is, right, in connection to Yehoshua. Sheyodea, that Hashem tells Moshe who to choose to be the next leader. Sheyodea lahaloch keneged rucho shel kol echad ve'echad. Ish asher ruach bo. Hashem tells Moshe to find a man of spirit. What does that mean? So Chazal teach us, Drush and Chazal is, our Chachamim explain, it means that a man that knows how to adapt to the spirit of each individual. What does that mean? That means that the leader of Am Yisrael he has his level of consciousness is so great. The greater the level of consciousness, the more it can accommodate and the more it can accept and receive and encompass differences and different levels of consciousness. Okay, so the deeper and the greater the level of consciousness, the more it spreads its wings to encompass and include and connect various different levels of consciousness in it. It's kind of like the father category, that all the other categories of consciousness are included in it. It's kind of like the roots of the tree that all the branches come out of. Okay, and so that's what the Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation needs to be, and that's what the leader of the generation needs to be. And that means that he is able to adapt himself to each and every person, to the spirit of each and every person. What's the spirit? What is this word, ruach? Rabbi Nachman says that's the consciousness of the person. And that's the holy consciousness of the person, right? We're speaking about the consciousness of the individual's higher self. And that's called Ruach HaKodesh. And so every person has a specific level of Ruach HaKodesh that is appropriate, that is the higher self of that individual, and that is developed to the level, to the extent that that individual has allowed themselves to be a proper vessel for that consciousness to seep through. And the tzaddik is able to know that. And just by looking at the Moshe Rabbeinu is able to draw to this person the awakening of that Holy Spirit, of that Ruach HaKodesh, of that divine consciousness, of the higher self in that individual. And so the tzaddik is the one that draws higher consciousness to the whole nation. Okay, and that's the job of the tzaddik. That's the purpose of the tzaddik. That's the place of the tzaddik. That's the power of the tzaddik. And so when he does that, so that is exactly what we're talking about in this Torah. It's what the tzaddik brings to awareness. Okay, and so when he brings to awareness, when he draws this consciousness to us, he brings to our awareness the purpose that Hashem has in creating the world, and the pride that he prides himself with the Jewish people and each individual. That itself is what awakens the feelings, the energy of love and fear of the Ribono Shel Olam. But some people are blinded to that, says Rabbi Nachman. They're blinded to the light of the tzaddik, and they're blocked from it, and it's because of their inappropriate habits, their actions. They're acting in corrupted ways, and that causes this blocked consciousness. Okay, their consciousness is in a state of foolishness, which is the opposite of dat. And so how do we fix that? How do we rectify that? So we look for the source of it. Where does this foolishness fall upon people? Where do these people come to this foolishness and this inappropriate actions, where they're acting in corrupted ways, in destructive ways, and that causes that all the knowledge and wisdom that they have basically is being channeled into the void, into the spiritual garbage, right? A spiritual garbage dump. Okay, how does that? Where does that come from? What's the source of this destructive energy that is causing all of that knowledge and wisdom to be channeled in the wrong places? Rabbi Nachman explains to us the secret of the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach is the Malchut, it's the Shechina, it's the function of elevating, lifting up, and elevating the physicality of this world and connecting it, using it to bring more glory to Hashem, which is the energy of Malchut. That's the definition of Malchut, of Shechina, of the purpose why Hashem dwells among us in this physical world, in order to bring a revelation of that glory, that kingship of the king. And that's the Mizbeach. That function is accomplished through the Mizbeach, through bringing, elevating, lifting up, bringing the physicality, the sacrifices, the Domem, Tzomeach, and Chai, all the way up through the Medaber, the inanimate objects and the plant life and the animal life is all sacrificed through the speaker. Okay, the highest element of the world, of what we have in this world, is the one that speaks. And that's the highest level that we have. And he is the one who brings up, who takes this animal who ate plants and ingested also inanimate rocks and soil, and the plants grew in the soil. And he is bringing that up on the Mizbeach, and that's being elevated, lifted up. So there's a connection between the physical world and the spiritual world, and the physical world is included. Now it's elevated and included within, integrated in that spiritual world, all to bring a greater revelation of the glory of Hashem. And so that's the Malchut. And that Malchut, that function, it has to be in the physical world. The physical world is the end of a spectrum of millions and billions of worlds in the spiritual world. All of that ends with this physical world called Olam HaAsiyah. It's kind of like in Kabbalah, sometimes it's given another name. It's like the shoes of all the worlds. Just like in a person, the shoes of the person are the outer clothing of the foot. So it's the end of the body, but it's the covering of the end of the body. That's what this physical world is compared to. In certain places in Kabbalah, we see that it's compared to a shoe, because it's the end of all of this line, okay, this hishtalshilut ha'olamot of billions of worlds. Spiritual worlds are tremendously, each world above the physical world is billions of times greater than this world. And so if you would imagine this whole physical world, in this physical universe, in the galaxies and everything that scientists still have no idea, they don't even see an end to it, all of that is only like a drop in the sea next to the world above that, called Olam HaYetzirah. And the world above that, called Olam HaYetzirah, which is a spiritual world, it's like a drop in the sea next to the world above that, called Olam HaBriyah, and so on and so forth. Some places in Kabbalah, we see that they break it down even more, and they say that every part of each one of these worlds, the higher it is, let's say every sphera in the world of Olam HaYetzirah, next to the sphera above it is like a drop in the sea. So that's how great the succession of worlds, the greater, the higher you go, is billions and billions of times greater than the world that you came from. And so this physical world is like the shoe. It's like the outer shoe. And so that's the aspect of the Mizbeach. And only in this place is the ability for the powers of concealment to suck any energy, any vitality, any life force. And that's their existence. They don't exist without that. Their whole essence is only because of what they're able to steal away from the Mizbeach. And so we must block that, and we must weaken them and subdue them and overpower them and give the power to the Malchut, to the Mizbeach. And so how do we do that? Rabbi Nachman gives us two options. Both of them are really the same thing, but just he offers to us parallel explanations of the same thing. How to complete the Malchut and to empower her to a point where you're at the same time weakening and eliminating her enemies, and at the same time you're empowering the Malchut. And so Rabbi Nachman says by eating, when you're eating your food at your table, recognize that your table is like the Mizbeach, and eat with a sense of awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that I'm here and I'm involved in a holy work, what I'm doing here at this table. And what I'm doing here is I'm separating the sparks of holiness from this food that I am taking in, that I'm eating, in order to take that energy and use it to serve Hashem better. And that's my intention. My intention is not to feed the animal soul. The intention is to feed and to give energy to my higher soul, so that I can serve Hashem in a greater way. And the other explanation Rabbi Nachman says is through the Gerim, through the converts. The righteous converts are those sparks of holiness that the enemies of the Mizbeach, the enemies of the Malchut, succeeded in stealing away. Those are the Jewish souls that were lost among the 70 nations. And when they return to the Malchut, when they return, right, so the belief systems that they fell into, the belief systems of the 70 nations, those corrupted belief systems, now they have broken those belief systems, and they have freed themselves from those belief systems, and now they return to the belief system of the Torah and the mitzvot, the belief system of Hashem. And so when that happens, those souls, those sparks, are being returned to their rightful place, to their home, to the Malchut, and that completes the Malchut. That's completing and perfecting the Mizbeach. So at the same time, you're weakening the enemies of the Malchut, because now they no longer have that energy that they were receiving, okay? And when you're eating in a proper and a holy way, you're not feeding your animal self, you're weakening the enemies of the Malchut. You're weakening that animal self, and you're strengthening what? You're strengthening your soul. You're strengthening that consciousness, what's called hidromemut sechel, right? An elation and enlightenment of the consciousness of the person. And now also when the converts are coming back, and so the enemies of the Malchut are left with no soul, okay, and so they fall apart, and they're eliminated in this way, and the Malchut is elevated and empowered. And so now we have to understand and explain how to bring those converts. How do we bring back those souls to Judaism? So first of all, let's just finish off a last point that Rabbi Nachman said at the end of Ot Dalid that we read yesterday. Rabbi Nachman says this line. He brings the pasuk in Bamidbar that says, "Lo yishka bad yochal teref v'dam chalalim yishteh," that the Jewish nation doesn't lie down to sleep until it eats its prey and drinks the blood of its kill. And we spoke about this word teref, the prey. The prey is what is brought to the Mizbeach. Basically, it's the sparks. The prey are the sparks that belong to the Malchut, that the Malchut is the Toref, is the predator. That's why the Mizbeach is in the portion of the Shevet Binyamin, who was called Binyamin Ze'ev Yitraf. Binyamin compared to a wolf, the predator, just as he's a predator, just like the wolf. Okay, that's the pasuk in the Torah about Binyamin. And so the Mizbeach Bechelko Shel Toref, the Mizbeach is in the portion of the predator, the Binyamin. And that's the aspect of Malchut that now is returning, receiving, catching, hunting and gathering those sparks of holiness and returning them back to their rightful place. And that is the opposite of someone who falls to the enemies of the Malchut. Someone who falls to the enemies of the Malchut experiences the same letters of Teref, but in a corrupted form. Teref becomes Teruf, which means chaos. Rabbi Nachman explains it as Teruf Hadat, where the person's consciousness, his mental faculties are in chaos. And so Rabbi Nachman brings this pasuk how we don't go to sleep until we eat our prey. Okay, so that means yochal teref, eating the prey. Rabbi Nachman brings the Targum Onkelos, that he translates, the translation of that in Onkelos is Venichse amemaya yerat. and he will inherit the possessions of the nations. And so Rabbi Nachman explains that to mean the bringing back these converts to Judaism. Those are the possessions of the nations. But Rabbi Nachman, he brings a Gemara. There's a halacha that says in the Gemara that a convert that passes away and he doesn't have any children, right, to inherit his properties, because he's a convert, and a convert doesn't have any relation anymore to his parents or to his brothers that are still non-Jewish. And so whatever usually those possessions would maybe be inherited by a person's parents or his uncles or his brothers or whatever, and this person doesn't have any children, and his brothers or his parents are not Jewish, so anyone who goes and takes, he sits in the land of this convert, he takes possession of that convert, makes a chazaka in the land of that convert, he can take possession of that land. Okay, and so that's the idea that we see here, that the possessions, that the converts, on a deeper level, this halacha is kind of symbolizing a certain idea here that Rabbi Nachman wants us to recognize. The halacha that the possessions of a convert that doesn't have anyone to inherit him are now coming to the Jewish nation, and anyone can come and take possession of that land that he owned, is symbolizing to us the idea that something is being brought in to the Jewish nation that was not there beforehand. A possession from the outside is being brought in that was not there beforehand. If it was there beforehand, then it's inherited by the parents, by the grandparents, by the uncles, by the aunts, by the brothers. But the fact that anyone can take possession of this land of the convert is symbolizing on a deeper level that now the Jewish nation as a whole is taking in more possessions. Okay, and so that's symbolized by this halacha that anyone can take possession of the land of the convert. Okay, so let's continue to ot hey. אך איך אפשר לעשות גרים, והלא הם רחוקים מאוד מקדושת ישראל, ומאין בא זאת שיבוא להם הדעת שיתגיירו? How is it possible? Now we have to understand, how can we cause for these Jewish souls to convert back to Judaism? So we have to understand how to cause the converts to come back. So Rabbi Nachman explains, how is it possible for them to come back if they were so distant from holiness, right? If they were in such a dark place, so lost, so disconnected, how could they come from their place, from their background, from their environment, leave all that behind and change completely their identity, not to some identity that's somewhat similar to how they're currently living, but to the opposite end of the spectrum? How is that possible? And so Rabbi Nachman explains, like this. He says, Achda, שזה נעשה על ידי בחינות הון יוסיף רעים רבים. היינו על ידי צדקה שנותן לתלמיד חכם שהוא כלול מכמה נפשות ישראל. So he says that this happens through tzedakah. That's what he's going to explain. And he brings this pasuk that we have in Mishlei that says that wealth adds more friends. When there's wealth, then a person all of a sudden has a lot more friends. That's a simple explanation of the pasuk. But there's a much deeper thing that is happening here that Rabbi Nachman is going to explain to us from this pasuk. And he says like this: when you give tzedakah to a Talmid Chacham, when you give tzedakah to a Torah scholar, what is considered a Torah scholar? What's considered a Talmid Chacham in this context? Rabbi Nachman explains, Shehu kalul mikama nafshot Yisrael. Okay, a Torah scholar is somebody that is a man who has devoted their life to expanding their consciousness as a Torah consciousness, to developing their divine consciousness, to developing their Torah consciousness. Okay, so this is a man of neshama. It's a man of soul. And just like you have in a body, you have the physical aspects of the body, and you have the spiritual aspects of the body, the outer aspects, the inner aspects, the lower aspects, the higher aspects, and you have the goof and the neshama, the body and the soul. In the same way, you have in a nation, you have those people that have devoted their lives in different ways. And some people have careers or ways that they spend their days in order to make money that are involved in farming, and some people are involved in raising animals, and some people are involved in being a jeweler, and some people are involved in other crafts, and every person, according to their soul, according to their neshama, and according to what type of sparks of holiness they are meant to lift up from this physical world, they find a certain attraction to a certain way of making money and involving their in what they will involve themselves. How will they spend their days? How do they spend their times? It all depends on what is their calling, and that's connected to their soul, their neshama, and what type of sparks they are supposed to be lifting up from this physical world. And so the Talmid Chacham is a person who is drawn to sitting and learning Torah. He is able to, he finds it very attractive for him. That's where he finds his calling, is to develop his Torah consciousness as much as he can, to develop it for himself and to teach it to others. And so that just symbolizes the fact that this person is a soul, a neshama from the aspect of neshama. So he is from the aspect of the soul of the nation. So when you have in the nation, just like you have in the body, all these parts you have in the body, and you have a body, you have the physical part of the body, and then the spiritual part of the body, you have the goof and the neshama, and the nation as well. You have people that are neshamas, they themselves are the aspect of the soul of the nation, and you have people that are kind of connected to the body of the nation. And then you have everything in between. There's a million different levels in between that, and combinations of soul and body in between that, right? And you have the heart of the nation, you have the lungs of the nation, you have all these different parts in between. And so the Talmid Chacham is someone who is a neshama. And so because of that, we all know, Kabbalistically, one of the rules in Kabbalah, the more spiritual, when you have a whole system, when you have the 10 sefirot, the higher you go in the system, the more parts it includes within it. This is something we spoke about just earlier in the shir. Just today, we spoke about the da'at. The deeper the level of da'at, and the higher the level of da'at, the more it encompasses and includes and connects. And so the same thing in sefirot, in the worlds. The higher the world, the more it includes all the other worlds and connects all the other worlds. And so in the nation as well, when you come to a soul that is a Talmid Chacham, someone who devotes his life to developing, teaching Torah consciousness, such a person, his soul includes many, many, many souls. And so when you give tzedakah, when you give charity, when you give money to a Talmid Chacham, to a soul of a Talmid Chacham who includes many, many souls in him, it's as if you're giving charity to many, many, many people at the same time, to many, many souls at the same time, in this context. Okay, what does that mean? And so Rabbi Nachman is going to explain, we're going to go more into it in the next year, that there's a certain level of peace that giving tzedakah causes. What does it mean, the pasuk in Mishlei, that when there is wealth, there is more friends? What does that mean? It means that when there is wealth that is being spread out, okay, that's the charity that you're giving to a Talmid Chacham. And by giving the charity to the Talmid Chacham, it's as if you're spreading wealth to multiple, many, 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 many people. all of these souls that are included in the soul of the Talmid Chacham. When you give money to this Talmid Chacham and you support a Talmid Chacham, and with that money, the Talmid Chacham now spreads more Torah, creates more Torah, learns more Torah, teaches more Torah, develops more ideas in Torah, and those ideas now will help a whole generation. You just gave tzedakah, you just spread value, you just supported a whole generation. Okay, and so you are spreading the wealth in a much greater way than if you just gave it to another person who is not a Talmid Chacham, and his soul doesn't maybe includes 2 people, maybe his soul includes 5 people, let's say. But here, when you give tzedakah to the Talmid Chacham, let's say his soul includes 10,000 people or 1,000,000 people. Okay, you're spreading wealth in a much greater level. And when you spread wealth, when you spread money, Rabbi Nachman brings from this pasuk in Mishlei, that increases the friendly energy. It increases an energy of friendship, an energy of peace, an energy of harmony, an energy of mutual respect and admiration, mutual appreciation. That's the Hon Yosif Re'im Rabim. That's the deeper meaning of this pasuk in Mishlei, that wealth adds many friends. Okay, when wealth is used in this way and it's spread out to many, many people, so then that adds this friendly energy, and there's much calmer, friendlier, more peaceful spirit or energy that is being experienced throughout the world. And so there's a lot more Yishuv Adat. Rabbi Nachman is going to explain that that's the aspect of Yishuv Adat, when there's no chaos, it's just more calm and friendly and peaceful. That's the energy that is being spread out throughout the world because of that tzedakah, that support. You supported this soul that encompasses many souls. And so that is going to allow the Jewish souls that were lost in those dark places to have an awakening and to come back. And we're going to see more about exactly how does that work? What are the mechanisms behind that? Is when Hashem will explain that in the next year.